The day I found out my name had been removed from the business my father and I built together, I didn't yell, I didn't cry. I sat in my truck in the parking lot of a Kroger in Columbus, Ohio, and I ate a sandwich. Slowly, quietly, like a man who had just decided something. But let me take you back to where this started. My name is Gary. I'm 62 years old, and for 31 years I ran Harman & Son Mechanical, a heating and cooling company my father started in a garage on Morse Road in 1979. Dad passed in 2011, left the business to me and my younger brother Dennis, equal shares. That was the plan. That was always the plan. I'm the kind of guy who still drives the same truck he bought in 2004, who brings donuts on Friday mornings, knows every employee's kid's name, and takes calls at 11 p.m. during a cold snap because that's what you do when it's your name on the side of the van. Dennis is the kind of guy who married into money, started wearing dress shirts to a mechanical business, and began every sentence with, "The board feels that," even though we had no board, it was just us. I should have paid more attention to those sentences. 2 years after Dad died, Dennis brought his wife's cousin, a guy named Mitchell who had a finance degree and had never touched a wrench, into the business as a consultant. I said fine. I was busy running the actual company. I let Dennis handle the paperwork side. That was my first mistake. You can't run a business by dividing the work and trusting the other half without watching it. Mitchell started restructuring. First it was new software, then it was efficiency reviews. Then one day I come in and there's a printed org chart on the break room bulletin board, and my title reads Field Operations Consultant. Not owner, not partner, consultant. I walked into Dennis's office and asked what that was about. He said it was just internal, said it didn't mean anything legally. I believed him. Not because I was naive, because he was my brother, and after 30 years of sharing a last name and a legacy, you don't expect the knife to come from that direction. 18 months later, I got a certified letter. Not a phone call, a letter. Dennis and Mitchell had filed paperwork quietly over time using the consultant title and some restructured LLC agreements that effectively reduced my ownership stake from 50% to just under 9%. 9% of my father's company, of my life's work. The letter informed me that due to my reduced operational role, the business name was being updated to Harman Mechanical Solutions, dropping "and Son." My name, the Son, gone. Betrayal from family doesn't arrive like a storm. It arrives like termites, quiet, invisible, doing damage behind the walls for years. And by the time you see the destruction, the foundation is already gone. I sat with that letter for 3 days. I didn't call Dennis. I didn't post about it. I called a lawyer, a quiet, sharp woman named Carolyn who specialized in business litigation. I laid every document in front of her, every email I had saved, every org chart, every consultant agreement, and Carolyn looked at me and said 7 words I will never forget. "Gary, they made a lot of mistakes." Here's what Dennis didn't know. Dad was old school. He didn't trust computers. He kept paper copies of everything. And before he died, he gave me a sealed envelope and said, "Don't open this unless you need to." I kept it in a fireproof box in my garage for 11 years. Inside was a handwritten letter and a notarized document, a secondary ownership agreement Dad had drawn up separately, witnessed by his accountant, that designated me as the majority stakeholder in any restructuring event. He wrote it because he knew Dennis. He knew, and he protected me the only way a father of that generation knew how, quietly in advance, without making a scene. Carolyn nearly fell out of her chair. That one document didn't just restore my ownership, it made every restructuring Mitchell filed potentially fraudulent. I didn't take them to court. I didn't need to. Carolyn sent a single letter to Dennis's attorney outlining what we had. 3 days later, Dennis called me, for the first time in 2 years. "I think we need to talk." We did talk, and in that conversation my brother, who had worn dress shirts to a heating and cooling company and let his wife's cousin erase my father's legacy, cried. I didn't. I had already done my crying, alone, in that Kroger parking lot. The settlement gave me full majority ownership, a buyout of Dennis's remaining stake on my terms, and a legal name restoration. Harmon & Son Mechanical. Back on every van, back on every invoice, back where Dad put it. Mitchell took a job somewhere in Phoenix. I never heard his name again. I kept the same truck, still bring donuts on Fridays. And on the wall of my office, right next to the old photo of me and my dad, I hung a framed copy of that handwritten letter, not out of anger, out of gratitude, because my father saw what was coming, and he loved me enough to leave me a weapon I didn't know I had. My father never said a word about that letter while he was alive. He just made sure it existed, because that's what a real man does. He prepares for the storms he hopes will never come. Has someone in your own family ever tried to take something that was rightfully yours, and how did you handle it? Tell me in comments.